Okay, music mic's on. Let me go ahead and unmute myself, and make sure my guest is okay, unmuted. Spaz, can you please say something?
Hello.
Hello. All right. So hey, welcome back, Spaz. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, you could certainly say that. You look a little different. Do you do something with your hair?
No, I spent a decent amount of money to look a little more uh approachable.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's one word you could put for it. Gotta say, your art style, the style of your still looks kind of familiar, almost like it was made by somebody who's known for drawing onions or something.
Yes, yeah, Goodly draws. He did a fantastic job.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
I can't understate my satisfaction.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. He actually designed the logo for Friday Nights with FilmNerd, so I totally get how he's. Yeah, I agree. He's very talented. But anyway, we should probably get on to the topic at hand. So tonight, one of the mods in my Discord server actually notified me that apparently tonight there's going to be a full moon, and I just so happen to have a series on my website called Full Moon Fridays, so I figured why not take advantage of that. Um, but the first thing I should probably talk about is what the hell exactly is Full Moon Fridays, because I've been doing it for like however many years now. I kind of lost track. Full Moon Fridays is basically a series devoted solely to this guy, one Charles Band, a pretty what the oh damn it, get out of here.
One moment. I couldn't find that in your Apple Music library. You can ask me to play a radio.
God damn it. Okay, come on. Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Siri decided to pop in and say a few things. But anyway, so yeah, I cannot talk now. God damn it. Full Moon Fridays is a series I do on my website devoted solely to Charles Band, a pretty prolific filmmaker and producer who's produced up to the time I'm doing the stream. I think he's up to like 350 or something like that.
Yeah, this dude is like he was pretty much like the Stan Lee of like the B movie horror. Like,
Yeah.
chances are, if you were ever a kid walking through a video store, like either a Video One or a Blockbuster, you probably have like seen at least 15 like pieces of his work at any given time.
Yeah, he was definitely one of the big pioneers when it came to the video era. In fact, it's actually funny you mentioned Stan Lee, because growing up, Charles Band actually was a big fan of Marvel Comics and actually used that as kind of inspiration for a lot of his movies, like especially the crossover aspect of it. He loved the idea of taking characters from one franchise and having them merge with another one.
It's definitely made for some entertaining like crossovers. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is like Demonic Toys versus the Puppet Master, which
Yeah.
it watching that one was like, oh yeah, that's great, they can be good guys, and you go back and you watch like all the rest of Puppet Master movies, like, I'm conflicted.
Yeah. Well, actually, the thing about Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys is that one's it's kind of tricky, because like that was made during a period where Full Moon, like, Charles Band has made it no secret that Full Moon has always struggled when it comes to money, and that was during a period where they were like really desperate for money, so they actually sold the rights to Puppet Master and Demonic Toys to the Sci-Fi Channel, and they're the ones who produced sorry, my mind is blanking. They're the ones who produced Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys, so Band didn't really have much of anything to do with that movie.
Oh, well, that explains a lot.
Yeah. But anyway, before we get full on into Full Moon, I kind of want to talk a little bit about some of his early work. We're not going to spend we're not going to go over every single movie he has under his belt, because we would be here for days just talking about even half of them. So I just picked out a couple of what I consider to be some of his more noteworthy titles, and we're just going to kind of talk about them a little bit, give our thoughts, and I'll provide some info that I happen to know about the movies. So I guess to kind of start off, Charles Band is an American, but he actually spent most of his childhood in Italy because his dad was a prolific filmmaker named Albert Band. And he directed a lot of movies over in Italy, like spaghetti westerns, historical pieces, costume dramas, things like that. So from an early age, Band was all about movie making. Like, he was practically raised on a film set. But then in the early 70s, he moved back home to the States when the money kind of dried up in Italy, and he started to produce his own movies. And he produced a handful of titles, some of them a lot of them lesser known, but probably the most infamous of his early work from the 70s is a little movie called Laser Blast. Laser Blast is probably best known for being on an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's a story about a kid who finds a laser gun in the desert, and he starts going crazy with it. And then there are these two stop-motion aliens, which are probably the best part of the movie, trying to search for the laser blast. I'll be honest, I wouldn't call it a good movie, but it is an interesting watch. It's very slow, but the stop-motion aliens and all the explosions towards the end kind of make it worth watching.
And that reminds me of that laser pistol you can get in Fallout New Vegas. It's like you just have a kid playing around with it, and you don't know what it's capable of till later.
Yeah, exactly. And the guy spends almost the entire. I mean, he does have a shirt on, but he spends the entire movie with it hanging open for whatever reason. I guess maybe to appeal to the ladies, but I don't know. He's kind of milquetoast, honestly.
It's kind of scary looking, to be honest with you.
The aliens?
No, the main lead.
Oh, yeah. Actually, there are a couple of noteworthy actors that were in Laser Blast. There was Roddy McDowall, who most people probably remember as Cornelius from the Planet of the Apes movies, and Eddie Deason, the guy who plays the nerd in every single movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who kind of talks a little bit like this. I don't know, I can't do an Eddie Deason voice.
I think you got the point across on that one.
Yeah,
the real question I have to ask is, with this movie, the poster, the poster is what really gets my attention.
Oh yeah,
and it's just very surreal. If you really want a good feel for how what era these movies came out in and everything like that, you would definitely just look at the the box art for it itself.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, let me see if I can pull up a picture of the poster just so people get an idea about what kind of movie this is. Because yeah, I do agree that it is really one of those movies that you can kind of get what it's like just from looking at the poster. Let's see. Let me go to Zoom. Okay, that's my capture. Can you see the poster? On the oh wait, I'm checking this. I'm checking the stream on my phone. Okay, cool. Yeah. This is the poster for it, and I got to be honest. This is kind of one of my favorite things about old B movies like this, is that even if the movies themselves weren't very good, the posters for them were awesome to look at.
You can just see that being some dude's man cave. Hey, you ever seen this movie?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at it. You got a spaceship coming down. You got aliens in the back. You've got explosions, cars piled on top of each other. You've got a creepy guy with like a big laser gun, like firing at some guy, reducing him to a skeleton. You've got people running in fear. Like, this is an awesome poster.
Just images that could be an album cover.
Exactly. So I should probably also mention that Laser Blast was actually the first movie that that Charles Band did with a guy named David Allen, who will become a pretty big part of Full Moon. He was known for doing a lot of stop motion animation, and he did pretty much all the stop motion for a lot of Full Moon's early output. So, and also one more thing to mention with Laser Blast. There's a pretty infamous scene where the main guy is in a pickup truck with the laser blast, and he passes by a sign for Star Wars, and he blasts it.
They got a phone call about that.
Well, what's funny is Charles Band actually got to see an early cut of Star Wars, and he was really impressed with what he saw, and he decided to throw. And he knew how he had a feeling he knew about I cannot talk. He had a feeling about how popular the movie was going to be, so he actually threw the little Star Wars thing in there to take a jab at it or something. But it's probably one of the more infamous moments from the movie.
Do you think that's that actually played a really big role in the idea? Except it's you have your blonde boy lead, except for finding a sword, he finds a gun.
Yeah, I guess I never really thought of it like that. Anyway, so now we'll move on to the next movie, and this is actually one of my personal favorites from Charles Band's 70s output, a little movie called Tourist Trap. Basically, the plot of this movie is a group of young people are driving down the road, and they end up at this what's called a tourist trap, which is basically a little place that's like a tourist attraction, and it's like a wax museum that's run by this really old, this crazy old guy. And I kind of don't want to give away too much, but it's definitely more psychological horror, but it's a pretty interesting little flick. It was made by it actually had some of the same crew that worked on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it was actually shot literally at the same time as John Carpenter's Halloween.
Oh man!
In fact, what's funny is at the time they were sure that Tourist Trap is going to be the bigger hit because that movie had Chuck Connors, who at the time was a pretty big name, whereas Halloween had Jamie Lee Curtis, who nobody really knew at the time. They just saw her as the daughter of two other famous people, whatever. But then, Halloween comes out, it's a massive hit. Tourist Trap comes out, and I think it did well, but it really underperformed, and it's become more of a cult film.
Especially if you're if you're filming, back in the day when you were filming and producing anything, it's just more in the lines of, like you said, at the same time they were doing Halloween. It's the market itself was saturated up to the gills, and that's where that's where we get the more known horror icons of that we still talk about today, that people keep trying to capture lightning in a bottle again, but you're not going to be able to get it like it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, Tourist Trap I think is a very unique experience. Boston Soul says this is the first I've heard of it. Honestly, if you like really offbeat 70s horror and just kind of more psychological stuff, I would highly recommend Tourist Trap. It's worth a watch. So anyway, next up, we're gonna jump ahead a little bit to a little movie called Parasite 3D. Not to be confused with the Academy Award-winning Parasite from a few years ago. This one is noteworthy for a number of reasons. One, it was shot in 3D. It was kind of the movie that kind of kicked off the mini 3D revival of the early 80s. It was also the first film to feature a then unknown Demi Moore, and the special effects in the movie were done by a little guy known as Stan Winston. The guy who worked on movies like The Terminator, Aliens, Predator, Jurassic Park. I don't know what else. but he's done quite a lot of stuff. But
it seems like due to the how closely that Full Moon had worked with Paramount, there seemed to be a lot of bleed over so far as like how people moved up.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually kind of another interesting thing is because with low budget movies, a lot of people like to mention like how Roger Corman got a lot of people their start, but Band also got a lot of people start, was also the starting point for a lot of people too, like Demi Moore, Helen Hunt, which I'll go into in a little bit later. Viggo Mortensen got his first start in a little movie called Prison. That's another one that's super underrated, but we kind of don't really have time to talk about that. We've only got a couple movies to go through, but I mean, Charles Band, like I said, he's not as prolific as Roger Corman, but he did help get a starting point for some people. Though I remember there's a video from James Corden's show where Demi Moore was interviewed, and she was asked, "What's the worst movie you've ever been in?" And she said Parasite 3D.
Yeah, I'm seeing right here that it has a 15% approval from like 13 critics.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it like an amazing movie. I mean, it's a B movie. It's basically a post-apocalyptic film where there's like a parasite going around attacking people. Like the parasite stuff is okay, but the post-apocalyptic stuff is like really interesting. Like just seeing how this world like operates. But I don't know. I mean, for what it is, it's fun. I think it's a good time.
I mean, if you can sit down and watch Birdemic, and you can watch like Sharknado like 6,000, I guarantee you can probably sit through this. It will not. If you're curious, it probably won't kill you.
Yeah. Plus also like this is one of those like unlike those movies, this one wasn't made to intentionally be bad. It was just like it just happened to end up not being the best in the world. Which, I mean, those other movies you mentioned, I guarantee you they were made to be intentionally bad. They weren't just like, oh, we wanted to make a good movie, but it turned out to be shit.
Nah, there are some people who go into making a movie saying, I'm going to cram this down everybody's throat. Sometimes people have their pleasure projects that don't always fan out. But as you can see, like a lot of older media, especially around the 80s time period, everybody seems to pick it back up. I guess it's for like it's a look back from the past, and you can for people in our age demographic, you can what's I'm looking for, be nostalgic over something you were never a part of.
Yeah, or at least like kind of appreciate the stuff that they made back then. That's not like the stuff that we have now.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so moving on, the next movie that I want to talk about is probably one of Charles Band's bigger movies from this period, Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin. This is another 3D movie, but this actually had the backing of Universal. The story goes is that Band was making this movie independently, and then around the same time, and he actually had a contact who ended up working at Universal, and Universal was working on Jaws 3D, and part of getting that movie set up was they had to go to numerous theaters and get them set up to project 3D, and obviously this costs a lot of money, and the Universal didn't want to throw all that money away, so the head of Universal called up Charlie and was like, hey, we heard that you were working on a 3D movie, would you mind showing it to us? And they liked it so much they agreed to pick up the distribution rights for it, and they released it the month after Jaws 3D came out. So this is another one that was trying to cash in on the mini 3D craze. The movie basically is like, it's kind of like Mad Max meets Star Wars a little bit. I don't know, it's a pretty fun sci-fi adventure film, and this one actually features a couple of Charles Band regulars, most notably Tim Thomerson, who I'll talk about a little bit later. But I don't know, this is a pretty fun movie, and this is actually what kind of helped kickstart Empire Pictures, which I'll go into in a little bit. Oh, and also
I gotta start watching some of these.
yeah, they're definitely. I mean, they're a mixed bag. Like I will admit, a lot of the '70s stuff, aside from like maybe Tourist Trap, a lot of them are just kind of blech. But his early '80s stuff is pretty entertaining. Like Metal Storm. I mean, how can you not love a movie with a title like Metal Storm: The Destruction of Jared Sin?
I mean, it sounds like a book or a novel you would get for a flight. Let's be honest with us.
I can see that. I guess another noteworthy thing about the movie is it was the first film to feature Kelly Preston, years before she married John Travolta.
Oh.
And this is a movie that actually was planned to have a sequel, and I think it did fairly well financially, but I guess not enough to justify a sequel, so it literally ends on a cliffhanger that never gets resolved. Plus, like, it's called The Destruction of Jared Sin, but Jared Sin doesn't actually end up getting destroyed at the end of it.
So it's not more on the lines of does he get like his life ruined, or is it just like he doesn't actually get destroyed at all?
It's basically just an "I'll be back," and he flies off, and then the heroes are like, "Okay, I guess we're gonna have to try and stop him for real this time. All right, let's go," and then end.
So, if by chance a Hollywood mogul was like, I've already picked clean all the corpses I could find out in the open, the big cash cows, why not try to redo this one?
Yeah, that's kind of the thing I've always said is like I'm generally against remakes and reboots, but if you're gonna remake something that maybe was a good idea but probably wasn't executed like the right way when it came out. Like, you know, like I don't know, just don't remake something that worked great the first time around.
Yeah, I can see that, but you know how Hollywood works. You can't. There's no such thing as a sacred cow. They're gonna defile that corpse.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, for fuck's sake, they're doing a remake of The Toxic Avenger.
Wait, that was real?
Yeah, it's real. I mean, there's not a release date planned for it yet, but it is in the works, and I believe Peter Dinklage is going to be in it. Yeah, but we can get into that at another time. But anyway, so Metal Storm did reasonably well enough that Charlie decided, you know what? I'm sick of making other people's movies. I want to make movies for myself. So he used the money that he made from Metal Storm to form Empire International Pictures, which was a small studio he ran that I think only lasted like a couple years, unfortunately. But I'll get more into that in a little bit. But he actually ended up buying a pretty sizable studio in Rome to film a lot of his movies. He actually bought, if you're familiar with Dino De Laurentiis, he bought his whole studio, and the studio had like all kinds of costumes and props from movies like Barbarella, but unfortunately Charlie had to get rid of a lot of them. Like once their financial problems came about, he had to sell off a lot of the stuff, and he really wishes he had held on to it.
That's how everything works. Usually you get a hold of a bunch of assets, and you don't know what to do with them at the time. You throw them all out, like, damn it, we could have used half of that.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so the first like major release from Empire, the one that kind of first like put him on the map, was 1984's Ghoulies, which a lot of people say is like a Gremlins knockoff, but it was actually, the concept for it actually originated before Gremlins as a movie called Beasties, and I think Ghoulies was even made around the same time as Gremlins, but it just happened to come out like right when Gremlins first hit. But yeah, Ghoulies is it's a pretty fun little creature feature, and going back to actors getting their start, this actually features a then unknown Mariska Hargitay, years before she sold her soul to Law and Order SVU. And actually, this image of the ghoulie coming out of the toilet, there's actually a pretty funny story about that. So, Ban had a friend who was kind of into marketing, and one night they literally just got stoned off their ass, and his friend was like, okay, I got an idea. What if we made a poster where one of the little ghoulie puppets, like, came out of a toilet, and we call it, like, Ghoulies, they'll eat your ass. And Charlie was like, that's a terrible idea. Maybe we should change that. Like, they still kept the ghoulie in the toilet, but obviously they couldn't print "they'll eat your ass" as the tagline. So they changed it to Ghoulies, they'll get you in the end. But what's funny is when they made the marketing campaign, they didn't actually put it in the movie, and somebody that was working with them brought that up, and they just shot like a quick insert scene of a ghoulie coming out of a toilet. And Charlie caught a lot of flack for this marketing campaign. Like, parents wrote angry letters to him saying that, like, their kids, when, like, you go to the, like, they refused to use the bathroom because they were afraid a ghoulie was going to come out of it.
I mean, that is a valid thing to be worried about if you live in some, like, large metropolitan areas.
Yeah. But I don't know, it just kind of reminds me of, like, when Psycho came out. There's a story about how Alfred Hitchcock got an angry letter from a father who complained that, like, after that movie came out, his daughter refused to take a shower, and Hitchcock just told him, well, take her to the dry cleaners.
Oh, shit. Or the shower scene in It, with, like, him coming out of the drains, the fucking drains.
Oh, yeah, I know what part you're talking about.
Like, it's just in general, like, anytime, like, the funny part about any of that is how it's, like, it can be so visceral, because whenever you're, like, well, whenever you're exposed, or you're in a situation like that, it can definitely put you at a weird state of mind, because it's especially if, like, imagine, like, you get that same feeling whenever you're in a public toilet. Now,
yeah.
You go home, it's like, I can shit in peace. I can shit with the door open in my own house. And it's like, but what if a hand reaches up, and how you recover from that?
Yeah, or it's like if you watch Snakes on a Plane, and there's the scene where the dude goes into the bathroom, and a snake literally bites his dick. Am I the only one who remembers that part?
No, I remember that part. I remember the line that happens afterwards. Like, oh, I gotta get me some of that.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, Ghoulies. The first one's pretty fun. There were actually 4 Ghoulies movies. Ban produced the first 2, but then I think after the second one, that was when Empire fell under, and he sold the rights to another company, and they made 2 more Ghoulies movies. I haven't seen 3 or 4, but I think in one of them the Ghoulies go to college.
Oh.
I do remember for the second one, they were attacking like a carnival or a fair, and you were mentioning in the chat earlier that the song I played at the beginning was like quote unquote fire. There was a metal band in the 80s called Wasp, and they did a song specifically for Ghoulies 2 called Scream Until You Like It, and it's a pretty awesome song. Especially if you like...
I'm familiar with Wasp.
Yeah, especially if you like 80s hard metal. They actually did a lot of work for Empire. They were featured in a segment from this movie that Band made called The Dungeon Master, and footage of them was used in a movie that I'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, Wasp actually worked with Charles Band quite a bit in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so now we'll move on to what's arguably the most famous film that Charles Band released around this time, and that would be 1985's Reanimator. Yeah, a lot of people...
Everybody remembers this one.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of people seem to forget that Charles Band actually produced Reanimator. Well, he didn't actually make Reanimator. I think this is one that was like picked up by him. But this is made by a guy named Stuart Gordon, who sadly is no longer with us. He was originally from Chicago, and he actually wanted to adapt H.P. Lovecraft's Reanimator as like a TV miniseries, but his producing partner, Brian Yuzna, suggested instead to make it a movie, so he did. And he cast pretty unknown actors, people like Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton. I think they only had a budget of like $1 million, but then at some point Charles Band entered into it, because I think some of the people he knew worked on it, like his brother Richard Band composed the score. His go-to effects guy John Carl Buechler did a lot of the practical effects for it. But I mean, I don't think there's really anything I can say about Reanimator that hasn't already been said.
Yeah, it's one of those more well-known ones. It's just more in the lines of like the things that follow afterwards. Like, you get one good solid hit in, and then from there it all comes down to writing and lighting, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And Reanimator, I think, is easily one of the best horror comedies of all time. Like, for one, it is insanely gruesome. Like, especially in the climax when like all the undead start rising up and they just start like going crazy, and then like you've got like heads getting crushed and like organs coming to life and strangling people to death. And then of course you got Jeffrey Combs as Dr. West, who is easily the highlight of the movie. Just his dry, like sarcastic wit is, I don't know, it's just infectious.
Definitely. It's one of those movies where you get a lot of people like wanting to watch it during a certain like Halloween or whatnot.
Yeah, I could see that, and I'm kind of curious at this, because I'm sure you probably know what scene I'm about to talk about. I wonder if this movie ruined cunnilingus for women who saw it.
That maybe.
Yeah, which
maybe.
There's a funny story about that. So another actress was originally up for the part of Megan, but she backed out of it because she didn't want to do nudity. So then Barbara Crampton came in, and we all know that this is the period where she wasn't afraid to show it off for the camera. But what's funny is during like the premiere for the film, the wife of the actor who played the mad scientist, Dr. Hill, when the scene came up, she like stormed out of the theater and screamed at him like, "This is the movie you've been making?" And I think shortly after that they got divorced. And I don't know, I just find it hilarious that one, she I guess didn't know what kind of movie he was making, but two, it's like, I mean, okay, yeah, he like goes down on her, but that doesn't mean like they're fucking in real life. It's just a movie. Relax.
Some people would say it's the principle of the thing, but you know, different times, different peoples, different everything.
Yeah. I guess I should also mention that apparently, when Stuart Gordon turned in his original cut of the film, Band deemed it like too slow and too long, so he actually took it and cut the film down to make the pacing flow a bit better. And Gordon was so initially upset by it that he refused to even watch the film for about a year, and then he watched Charles Band's cut of it, and he was like, you know what, Charlie was right, this moves a lot better. I have seen both the like theatrical cut and the longer director's cut, and there is some like interesting character stuff that's in the director's cut, but I feel like Charlie was right on the money with making the changes he made, because even with the new character stuff added to it, it's a much slower movie.
I mean, well, like it was supposed to be more of a mini series, like Jog. I mean, you take an entire like book, and whenever you take a book or you take a story, you can either make it as long as you want to, or you can cut anything you want out of it. And there's a lot of context you can leave in and out.
Yeah.
Do you think, what's the possibility of like getting or have they done? Because I've been out of the loop a lot on a lot of shit, but
sure.
Doing remakes. Do you think they'd be able to do a mini series like Hulu or Netflix pick up and do a mini series?
I mean, I could see it potentially happening, especially with like the renewed interest in H.P. Lovecraft in the last couple years. I could potentially see maybe like Hulu or even like Shudder doing a Reanimator series, but I'm also kind of worried that like, because you know that it's instantly going to be compared to the original film, like there's just no avoiding it.
I mean, like we're getting the same thing when people like Evil Dead Rise right now, but apparently that's still doing pretty good.
Yeah. Actually, I was gonna ask, did you see Evil Dead Rise?
No, I have been insanely busy.
No,
I
that's
want to see it. I want to see it before it goes out of theaters, but that's gonna be a hard one to pull off.
no, I get you. I'll just briefly say like, because I had mentioned before that I was skeptical of it because from the trailers it didn't really seem like an Evil Dead movie. But now having seen it, I can confidently say that it does the series justice. Like, not only does it work on its own, but if you're a big Evil Dead fan, you're gonna really love Rise.
So I have something to look forward to. That's great.
Yeah, exactly. um, and I guess one more thing about Reanimator is the movie had two sequels. Bride of Reanimator, which came out just a few years after the first one, and then Beyond Reanimator, which I believe came out in 2003. Neither one of them were directed by Stuart Gordon. They were directed by Brian Yuzna. And I've only seen them once, and I remember them being okay, but obviously they don't hold a candle to the original. But the thing that's really funny to me about Bride of Reanimator is that the main villain of the first movie, Dr. Hill, gets his head crushed in like really gory fashion. Like there's blood like coming out of his eye sockets, and then like it gets crushed like a watermelon and then thrown against a wall. And then in Bride of Reanimator, his head is like perfectly intact somehow. Like, were we supposed to forget that his head got crushed in the last movie?
I mean, it's the same thing with like in the Chucky series, and it's like, oh no, like someone picked up the pieces and put it together, and it worked somehow. Like, never mind the fact there's flesh and blood in that doll a minute ago.
Yeah, but
here's a fun little piece. Here's a fun little piece of headcanon. I might get into it a little bit later. The substance he uses in order to reanimate the corpses and everything.
Yeah,
it is a shocking. It looks shockingly familiar, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Not 100% sure what you could be getting at that, but I don't know. I'm sure I'll figure it out at some point.
Okay.
But anyway, so yeah, going on from Reanimator, the next one is another one of my personal favorites. It's kind of also one of the more well-known Charles Band movies from this time, but not quite as well-known as Reanimator, and that would be Trancers. Which, Trancers, if you haven't seen it, it's a really cool, like, sci-fi film noir type film. It's basically about a cop from the future whose name is Jack Death, by the way. He sent back in time to basically stop this guy named Whistler from killing the ancestors of like the council of L.A. And he ends up like. Well, what's interesting is with this movie, the method of time travel is that rather than stepping into a machine, you're basically injected with this chemical that essentially puts your consciousness into the body of your ancestors. So you essentially take over their body rather than hopping into a time machine.
It's like the Animus, but with less steps.
Yeah, well, I would say it's kind of like the Animus, except that with the Animus from Assassin's Creed, that was more of like a simulation, whereas in Trancers, you are actually in the physical body of the ancestor. You're not just like living out a simulation of their life.
Well, wouldn't that leave you open to like not being born, or?
Yeah.
Or is it one of those things where you don't know, you just do whatever you want? I mean, it's like what's the worst case scenario?
They don't really get into that stuff with Trancers. It's more just kind of you know what, shut up and just enjoy the ride. But Trancers is a really cool movie again, and it stars Jack Death. I mean, not Jack Death. Tim Thomerson, who was in Metal Storm, and he is just like the coolest motherfucker ever. Like he gives no fucks. He's very much like kind of an old school detective, like a Raymond Chandler or Humphrey Bogart type character. Always wears a trench coat, has a cigarette in his mouth. He's got like the same sort of like voiceover narration as Harrison Ford from Blade Runner, except it's actually delivered like he gives a shit. And it was also the first film to feature Helen Hunt, and it was actually Thomerson who suggested Hunt for the part, and they have like really good chemistry together, and she's got like this like streak in her hair that, like, I don't know how you feel about Helen Hunt, but to me she never has looked cuter than she did in Trancers.
I'm gonna have to like watch this one too, because like once again my question is like, how in the world would you like, could you take a concept like this, make it work? And I thought about it as doing like a existential like comedy sort of thing just now, where like, oh, you go back in time, and it's like, but what about my actions? Will it affect my future? Like the guy gets hit by a car and he wakes up and he's all of a sudden he's Mexican, and it's like, why? And it was like, oh, because we're going to do this regardless of who it was. So the guy's like consciousness is just like now in a like his ancestry got messed up. So now like, oh yeah, the guy for this job is still you, but your genetic line's been changed drastically because of what you did.
Yeah, well, that also does kind of bring into the question of because, like I said, the idea behind time travel in this is that your consciousness is in the body of one of your ancestors, like you essentially take over their body. But the question now is, what happens to the original consciousness? Like, what happens to the person whose body you inhabit? Do they just like not exist anymore?
They're asleep.
Yeah, well, I think, in the sequels, they kind of show that, like, while your consciousness is outside of your original body is, like, still where it once was, but it, like, becomes calcified over time. But again, it's just, like, you know, it's like you're basically killing someone else and then taking over their body.
You could do a weird thing where like you swap consciousnesses, and that's how you get like people who they can't do this time travel thing all the time, because then they go out for lunch or something, or they take the dude's body out for lunch. He's like, hey, I know that company. My cousin was talking about it, and it's like, well, they try to forget about it. This is the dream, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah. And he goes back and says, hey, I want to invest in that thing you did.
But
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. But so with Trancers, this is one that did get turned into a franchise, but not with Empire. Like, there was technically a sequel made in like the late 80s. It was actually part of an anthology film called God, what was it? It was called Pulse Pounders. It was basically made up of like 3 segments that were all like sequels to pre-existing Empire films. But after Empire went under, the footage was lost for years. But then when they started Full Moon, Trancers was actually one of the movies that ended up getting made into a franchise. And there's like 6 of them, and I've seen all 6. 2 is pretty fun, but it leans more into comedy. 3, I would say, is like the best one since the first. 4 and 5 are not very good. Like, even Thomerson has said that he's embarrassed by them. And then 6 tries to do something interesting by making it so that Jack Death is now in the body of his daughter. Like, that's kind of interesting, but I don't know. It just doesn't work when you have somebody other than Tim Thomerson trying to be Tim Thomerson.
It suffers from the same problem as American Psycho 2 did.
Yeah, well, except American Psycho 2 wasn't meant to be an American Psycho movie. It just so happened the studio that made it had the rights to American Psycho, and they were like, oh, well, maybe we can sell more DVDs if we call it American Psycho 2.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that. Like, I can't remember if it was on stream or a while back, but yeah, I remember us talking about that. It's just, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily the same thing, but when you get the concept, the vibe, it's, you've tried everything. What if you did a 7th one? Are you gonna like somehow be a dog?
Yeah, I know exactly. So anyway, moving on from Trancers, this is the next one I want to talk about is very like lesser known, but I still really love it. If I can pull it up, Terror Vision. Terror Vision. Actually, the song that I played at the beginning, the Terror Vision. This is the movie where that song came from. It's basically about an alien, like kind of like weird like alien creature that ends up in like a satellite dish that was installed by this family called the Puttermans, and it like comes out through the TV, and it's basically like a giant alien dog, but it's like really misshapen. Like it's got one big eye, one little eye, a malformed tail. One of it's got a tentacle with an eye on it, like the poster. It's just this weird, like misshapen mess of a creature that like oozes slime everywhere. But TerraVision is a lot of fun. It's basically like it takes all the major stereotypes of the 80s and like ramps them up to like extreme levels. Like you've got like the swinger husband, mom and dad who are like really stuck up, but again they're swingers. You've got like the daughter who's like a weird mix of like Valley Girl and like punk rock. You've got a kid, the main kid who's like over medicated and nobody believes him. You've got like the daughter's heavy metal boyfriend who, funny enough, is played by John Grice, who some of you might know better as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite. And there's like a grandpa who's like a big survivalist, and I don't know, it's a very weird, like crazy movie, but it's a lot of fun.
I don't know. You're introducing me to like a whole host of things that I'm not familiar with, and I'm looking at some of the stuff I'm seeing of it, like some of the practical effects, and that's the biggest thing that's selling me on actually trying to watch this. Just the way that they had to like put all this together. Like I said, it always comes to writing and lighting when it comes to doing anything proper.
Yeah, actually, just to kind of give the folks watching this a sense of what the creature in TerraVision looks like, let me pull up a picture of it on stream. Just give me 1 second. Hang on, I'm trying to find a good picture. Hang on, I saw one earlier. Okay, yeah, I found one. But what's funny about the creature in this movie is on the Blu-ray for it, there's an interview with a bunch of the people who worked on it, including John Carl Buechler, who did the effects. And in the interview, he says that the director basically told him to, quote, make it look really stupid.
Oh, God.
But yeah, this is the creature right here. Let me know if you can see it on stream.
Yeah, it's gonna take a minute. We got like a continuation lag.
Yeah, there's like a delay. I'm checking the stream on my phone just to make sure everything works, and it's not showing up yet, so there probably is a delay. But yeah, just to describe it, it's basically okay. Yeah, it's coming up.
There we go.
Yeah,
there we go.
It's this giant like blob creature with like a tiny little eye, a big ol' eye, a malformed mouth, like all these various tentacles, and this like one weird tentacle with an eye on the end of it. It's just this really bizarre like lumbering mess. Like it looks like a giant turd, honestly.
If it was intelligent, it'd be dangerous, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's basically meant to be like a pet. Like it's like a dog, only just really heavily deformed.
I don't know, man. It'd be interesting if it was like a concept similar to the Iron Giant. Like he suffers some sort of like bullshit while in an atmosphere that like caused it to be like this, like the bump on the head or whatever. And I was supposed to do something, but I completely forgot what it was. Situation.
Yeah, no, they literally, it's like it's considered like garbage. Like the aliens who dispose of it like it's again just pure trash, because they don't give a shit about it.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. But no, well, what happened with TerraVision was that it didn't really do well financially because it came out in 1986, about a week after the Challenger explosion.
Ah, yeah. That would kind of bump people out a bit.
Yeah, people at the time were really interested in anything that had to do with outer space after that. So I think it opened in like 28th place at the box office or something like that. But yeah, it was quickly taken out of theaters and largely forgotten about.
I wonder how much work it would have been to actually write that part.
What do you mean?
Okay, so if you had like a movie concept that you had everything already done, you know how like hey, we could have this part where the terrorists or like do X and here and whatnot. And it's like, oh yeah, that's great. And it's like we can totally do that. And then you have like 9/11 happens. Like how do we not let this like scene or this part in the writing kill us in the box office?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, would it have already been shot, or were they like about to shoot it?
I don't know. I the way I'm thinking is that this pretty much 90% done. The only thing that's left is like the editing and everything else. How quick do you think they could like write up a new beginning of how this thing got here, and they do like one or two reshoots or establishing shots in order to actually get it to work properly? To where it's not, outer space somehow.
Sure.
I don't know.
I know. Yeah, I guess it's kind of like I don't know if you remember the movie Gangster Squad, but there was originally a scene that took place at a movie theater, but the movie happened to come out around the same time that the Dark Knight Rises shooting happened, so they had to quickly redo the sequence to not be at a movie theater.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
So I guess maybe it'd be something kind of like that, where they just had to like shoot a whole other sequence and then just try to have it make sense somehow.
That raises the question we might get into later. How the fuck is anybody gonna go watch Rust?
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I don't know. I feel like Rust is almost kind of like this generation's Twilight Zone, the movie, where like there was like this one big disaster that happened that kind of overshadows the rest of the movie. Because I don't know if you know the story about what happened with Twilight Zone, the movie.
No, I've probably heard it once, but I can't remember it.
Well, long and short of it is that in one of the segments, there was a scene where the main actor and two Vietnamese kids are like running from a helicopter, and the helicopter crashed and killed all three of them.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And because of that, I believe the director of the segment, John Landis, and the producer, Steven Spielberg, were taken to court over it, and the trial lasted for quite a few years. I don't believe they were actually convicted, like they didn't serve jail time, but yeah, that was... I feel like that's kind of what's happening with Rust now. It's like, no matter how the movie itself turns out, it'll forever be overshadowed by this horrible tragedy that happened on set.
Yeah, like if I was Baldwin, I would probably say, no, we're gonna eat this as a loss. Everybody's getting paid for what they did, but we're gonna have to eat this one.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, let's get back on track. So the next movie I want to look at is Stuart Gordon's follow-up to Reanimator, which is actually another H.P. Lovecraft adaptation, 1986's From Beyond, which this one's kind of interesting because I've never read From Beyond, like the original short from H.P. Lovecraft, but apparently the original story is only like 6 pages long. So what they did for From Beyond was the first like 10 minutes of the movie are just the original short story, and then everything after the opening credits is like made up. Like it's basically them extending the story. Like, they get to the end of the story and then they're like, and then what happens next? But From Beyond, like, it's not quite as comedic as Reanimator is, but it's still like pretty gruesome. It's got some really imaginative practical effects, like some pretty amazing stuff, especially for 1986. It's a very gooey movie. Like there's like all the monsters are covered in like KY jelly, and it's kind of gross, but it's like fascinating nonetheless to watch.
And I'm looking at some of the images on Google. All I'm getting major vibes from is it's like H.R. Geiger and a lot of The Thing.
Yeah, I can see that. It does kind of share a lot of similarities with like the works of H.R. Geiger or like Rob Bottin, who did the effects for The Thing. But yeah, this is a very weird, trippy kind of movie. It's very colorful too. Like it's got a lot of purples and pinks and blues. versus 22 says pink goo. Yeah, this movie's got a lot of pink goo in it.
It all comes down to writing and lighting.
Exactly. It's also very sexually charged, because there's the weird like stalk thing coming out of the forehead. That's supposed to be the pineal gland. But I've seen interviews with Jeffrey Combs where he's talked about it, and he said, like, Stuart, it's a dog dick. Like, I know it's supposed to be the pineal gland, but come on, it's a dog dick. Yeah, but like, there's even a scene where Barbara Crampton, because there's a part in the movie where Jeffrey Combs' pineal gland like pops out of his forehead, and there's a part where he's like about to kill Barbara Crampton, and she literally bites down on it and like rips it out with her teeth.
Yeah, you know, that had to feel great.
Yeah, exactly. But no, yeah, From Beyond, if you ever get a chance to watch it, I would definitely recommend it. Like, if you liked Reanimator, I think you'll like From Beyond. Just don't go into it expecting the same sort of like comedic romp that Reanimator was. Like, From Beyond's a much more serious movie, but again, it does have some of its some goofy charm, and Jeffrey Combs is once again phenomenal in this, and Barbara Crampton once again does get naked in this movie, though she doesn't get quite as nude as she did in Reanimator.
You keep bringing up the nudity part, some of the things. Now, one of the things I did a little research, like when I saw this pop up, there was in the early '90s, freaking Full Moon had had like one spin-off where they specialized in softcore pornography.
Yeah,
and sci-fi comedies.
Yeah, that was Full Moon had a lot of sub-labels in the 90s. Like, they had Moonbeam Entertainment, which was devoted to like kids movies like Prehysteria, or like Beanstalk or Dragon World. They had Torchlight, which later became Surrender Cinema. That was all like Full Moon movies, but like more like softcore films. They had like Alchemy Entertainment, I think, was one of them. That was like all urban themed. There was like one that was devoted to like monster movies, like Full Moon versions of like the Universal monsters. They had all kinds of different sub labels in the 90s, and I think Moonbeam was the most popular of them all.
Now, when it comes back to From Beyond, like, I keep looking at special effects and everything like that. I'm starting to think that this is where the inspiration from Slither came from.
Honestly, knowing James Gunn, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a fan of From Beyond, because I mean, the dude fucking snuck in a reference to the Toxic Avenger and the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
But then again, that could also just be the fact that he got to start working with Troma.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so I guess moving along, so unfortunately, as the years went on, Empire was starting to go under. Like, a lot of their movies didn't do very well, and they also had a lot of bad checks. So they ended up going bankrupt around 1988, 89, and one of the last movies they produced, which was actually their biggest film, which was also directed by Stuart Gordon, was a little movie called Robot Jocks, which basically it's about like a future where instead of waging wars, whenever there's a dispute between countries, they have people pilot giant robots and fight it out to settle like worldly conflicts. And Robot Jocks is a really fun movie. Like, if you love...
Why aren't we doing that in real life? Real question.
I know, I'm surprised that isn't a thing nowadays. But if you love stop motion robots, you'll love Robot Jocks, because there's a lot of that in this movie.
I mean, wasn't the premise for a Gundam thing? Like, they had an Olympics that was just like Gundams from different countries fighting each other?
I don't quite know about that. I do know that apparently Stuart Gordon actually took inspiration from Gundam and Transformers, and I think Robotech. Like, he kind of drew inspiration for those when he created Robot Jocks. But there actually is kind of an interesting story about Robot Jocks. So Gordon directed it, and I can't remember the guy who wrote it, but they had like two conflicting views of it. Like the writer wanted it to be a much more serious, like kind of darker sort of movie, I guess, whereas Gordon wanted it to be more of like a live action Saturday morning cartoon. So you get like these weird like moments in the movie where like 1 minute you'll have like fun like stop motion robots fighting, and then you'll have a scene where one of the robots like falls over and it like crushes a bunch of people. Yeah, but also like there's a pretty fun drinking game you can play where, because like all the characters like say their names like all the time, like Achilles and what's the other guy's name? Like there's Achilles and there's like Atlas, I think is the other guy's name. Like characters say their names so many times that you can almost make a drinking game out of it. No, wait, Alexander, that's it. That was the villain's name.
They should I believe the time is right. I want CGI remake of this, and I want three of them made.
Well, I mean, we kind of already got that with Pacific Rim.
No. See, I don't want no big monsters. I want inter-country turmoil. I want like people with like really thick glasses, like making up like the best in robotics, and I want like politicians who just want to watch robots fight, like to like rig matches and then make a profit off of like ticket sales.
Yeah, I honestly I could see that. I mean, granted, I feel like if it were CGI, it would just look like the Transformers movies or again Pacific Rim. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like Robot Jox is one of those movies that you certainly could remake it, but I feel like it would lose a lot of the charm of the original.
I mean, at one point in time, we actually we have witnessed a giant robot fight at least once. The only problem is I think half of it was staged.
When did that happen?
It happened like I want to say 2015, 2016. There were like two. Okay, so one was an American-based company that was trying to make a mech, and the other one was a Japanese-based company that was also trying to make a mech, and they challenged each other to a fight. Yeah. And it ended in a quote draw, and it was heavily choreographed because how like slow the bots were moving.
Yeah.
But it was relatively cool at the time. I mean, I can say I lived to see a giant robot fight. They're relatively big, like the size of maybe like the size of a milk truck standing up. That's probably about the size of them.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
The only problem is I don't think the American one can move very well.
Yeah, well, go figure. An American-made robot doesn't move quite as well. But anyway.
Well, it was just like really powerful, while the other one was very articulate.
Yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, so Robot Jox, like, well, it technically wasn't the film that ended Empire. Like, there was another movie they made called Arena that was like Rocky except with aliens. But that was like technically the last Empire film, but officially Robot Jox was the last Empire film. And then after that, the studio went bankrupt, and Charlie had to sell off the rights to all of his movies to various different studios. Like, I think a lot of them are now owned by MGM, but he still retained the rights to a couple of his movies. Like, he still owned the rights to Transfers, which is how he got to do all the sequels. But after Empire fell, a new moon rose with Full Moon Features, which he started in. He started the company in 1989, and he decided that rather than do what he did with Empire, which is to shoot all the movies in Italy, he decided, hey, everybody lives in LA, why don't we just make our movies here instead? And he actually managed to ink out a deal with Paramount Pictures to distribute the films. And they actually also provided some of the budget too. So like, even though they didn't quite have the budgets that they worked with when they were at Empire, the movie still had like a $1 to $2 million budget to work with. So they looked a lot better than typical like direct-to-video movies from the early 90s.
Yeah, like when they booted up Full Moon Features, that's when like they started cranking these things out like over double time. But the quality was hit and miss in some of these. Like for instance, just pulling off my shelf, I was able to pull out like 2 like compendiums that I got from a bargain bin out of Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Like one's got 8 movies, the other one's got 12 movies, and this is probably someone's like a good chunk of someone's life work, and you can see where the quality went in some of the things and not in others.
Yeah, of course. But anyway, so the first movie that came out under Full Moon was a little movie called Puppet Master, which I should probably mention. Some of the first few movies that were released under Full Moon weren't actually Full Moon movies. They were movies that were made at Empire, but were carried over to Full Moon. So those would be like Puppet Master, Meridian, Kiss of the Beast, and Shadow Zone. But Puppet Master was like the first like major Full Moon movie, and interestingly enough, it was originally meant to go theatrical, but Charlie got the idea instead to release a direct-to-video, and it ended up, benefiting him in the long run. And as of currently, there's like 13, 14 of these movies now.
Okay, let's see here. In this compendium here, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them.
Yeah,
that's 9 of the 12.
Yeah, I've actually got a Full Moon, like a Puppet Master trunk box set that has like all the movies from Puppet Master 1 to Puppet Master Axis Termination, which I believe is number 11. And then there's like Puppet Master vs. Demonic Toys, which I already talked about. Then there's the kind of soft reboot Puppet Master The Littlest Reich. And then Full Moon actually produced 2 spin-off movies fairly recently. They did Blade the Iron Cross, and they recently came out with Puppet Master Dr. Death.
I mean, and this is where my comment from earlier went into. The green substance in Reanimator that he used to reanimate corpses looks a lot like the serum that's used to give the puppet's life.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, no, I can see that. What was actually
Which
go ahead.
if they had used like reused asset, it probably wasn't like a written thing. It was probably ones of like, hey, we know how to make green slime.
Yeah, probably. Well, actually, what's funny is that the fluid that was used in Reanimator for the for the reagent, that was actually the same chemical you would find in glow sticks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but no, yeah. I've seen like the first 11 Puppet Master movies from 1 all the way to Axis Termination, and that's a series that talk about its highs and lows, because there's quite a lot of like, there are definitely good ones. Like, I'd say the first 5 are probably the best. Like 3, I would argue, is probably the best one. That would be Toulon's Revenge, where it's the puppets versus the Nazis. But then after 5, that's when the series really went downhill, and that's largely because David Allen did the stop motion effects for the first 5 Puppet Master movies, and once he was no longer involved with them, like, that's when they really took a nosedive in quality.
You hate to see it, because I always liked Puppet Master movies, but I was always like really young, so I always like had a more simple mindset, like, who's the good guy in this situation?
Yeah.
But that really comes into play as like, okay, so I want to go back through them and watch them all now, and now I'm a little bit of a adult. I want to go back and watch them now and say, okay, I can see where some of these things are justified, but some of the things that these puppets are capable of doing is like viciously scary.
Yeah.
Like, there's one that coughs up leeches.
Yeah, a leech woman, which, funny enough, in 2, she gets set on fire, and that was actually at the request of Paramount. They thought that she was like too gross, so they wanted her just gone from the series, but then she came back for later movies.
Yeah, continuity issues.
Yeah, which, I mean, yeah, this series is, the continuity is kind of fucked in this series. Like, even early on, because in 3 it opens in 1941 with Andre Toulon in Germany, but the first movie opens in 1939 with Toulon in America somehow. But regardless, the movies certainly go vary in quality, but I don't know. I mean, they have their charm. And I do actually like some of the newer Puppet Master movies, especially like the more recent Nazi trilogy, where they have like all these weird like Nazi puppets. Like there's one that's a tank. There's one that's like a werewolf. There's one that's like that's called Bombshell, where it's like a blonde woman who's got like machine gun tits.
Oh yeah, can't go wrong with that one.
Yeah. And also another noteworthy thing, Retro Puppet Master, which I believe is the 7th one. That one features a pre-The Room Greg Sestero as a young Andre Toulon. And another interesting bit of trivia, before he got the part, a relatively unknown actor named James Franco was originally up for the part, but director David Dakota decided to go with Greg Sestero instead.
Can't have anything cool forever.
Yeah. With Greg Sestero, he actually, in Retro Puppet Master, he actually did really commit to the part. He was the one who suggested that he have a French accent, because Toulon is a very French-sounding name.
But he's Jewish.
I don't know. That, like, the character is supposed to be Jewish, or Sestero?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the main reason why Toulon was he could have been French, but I'm pretty sure like it fits into like the idea of the Jewish golem like myth.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. I don't know. I just always assumed that the Nazis targeted him simply because he was making fun of the Fuhrer, but that could just be me. I was actually gonna ask, of all the puppets from the movies, which one is your favorite?
Oh, that's it's either going to be between Blade or Six Shooter.
Yeah, those are both really good ones. For me, I gotta go with Torch. Torch is probably my favorite.
Yeah, he's a freaking little. Isn't that a one with the helmet?
Yeah, that's the one with the helmet, and he's got like bullets for teeth, and he's got a flamethrower, obviously.
God, like, I would love to see how they like came up with the ideas for some of these. Like,
Yeah.
designs are, some of them are really good, and the other ones are kind of like, eh.
Yeah. Well, actually, funny story about Blade. So the first Puppet Master was directed by David Schmoller, who also directed Tourist Trap for Empire. But around 1986, I believe, Schmoller directed a movie called Crawl Space, which is notorious because it starred an actor named Klaus Kinski, who was notorious for being difficult to work with. Like, in the case of Crawl Space, like, he got into at least one fist fight every day on set. Like, he was a nightmare to work with. And I think at one point, one of the producers even suggested that they just kill Mr. Kinski for the Klaus Kinski for the insurance. But
Jesus.
yeah, it's not like, there's even a mini documentary called Please Kill Mr. Kinski, where Schmoller talks about his experiences working with the actor. But I bring that up because supposedly Blade's design was actually meant to be kind of like a parody of was supposed to be based on Klaus Kinski.
Now that's really weird. That would be like how you would go about it. Because I always looked at him as like, he was kind of like Michael Jackson.
Yeah. No, I can see that, but I don't know. To me, knowing that the director based the puppet's design off of an actor who he had a very troubled relationship with, to put it lightly, I feel like that kind of adds a little depth to another layer to the character, I guess.
The thing is, like, if you have someone that you're working with like that, it shouldn't be like in their contract that they have, like, if they're like that, you could renegotiate contract, like, okay, anytime you want to run your mouth, like, Bobby here will go here and, like, knock the shit out of you.
Well,
like, just hire like this really big biker dude to follow you around.
Well, I think in the case of Crawl Space, Schmoller was kind of in a situation where it was like, either he works with Klaus Kinski or he doesn't work at all. Like, because for Empire they needed like a name actor to like for like the marquee value, and Klaus Kinski was a name, so it's like, you know, it's either him or nothing. So he kind of just had to tough it out.
I don't know. I don't think I'd be able to do that.
Nah, I get it. You know, filmmaking is not an easy thing to do. Especially because I think in the case of Schmoller, when he made Crawl Space, he was in kind of a bad spot because he had made a movie called The Seduction that did not go over very well, and his career was kind of in the shitter, so he just needed whatever opportunities he could get.
I can. Sometimes you gotta eat crow just to put dinner on the table.
Exactly. So anyway, we kind of rambled about Puppet Master for a while, but I would say Puppet Master is probably what Full Moon is most famous for. But there's another series that they're also pretty well known for, and that would be Subspecies, which are basically a series of vampire movies that center around the vampire Radu, who is this fine-looking gentleman featured on stream, and his quest for
Ragu.
Yeah, well, it's actually Radu, not Ragu.
But, I know, I was making a joke.
Of course, but it's basically about him and his conquest to become like the ultimate vampire. He goes after this artifact called the Bloodstone that basically is like an endless supply of blood that like gives him his power. And the first Subspecies is actually noteworthy for being the first American film to be shot in Romania, like after the Cultural Revolution in Romania. And that actually kind of also gives the films their charm, because being shot in Romania, they got to take advantage of like all these old castles and whatnot that they had available. So they actually helped make the film look more expensive than it actually was. But yeah, the Subspecies movies, I'd say the first 3 are really solid. There was a spin-off called Vampire Journals, and then a 4th Subspecies that wasn't that great. But they're actually coming out with a new 5th Subspecies movie that, believe it or not, is actually getting a theatrical release.
Oh, really?
Well, it's getting like a one-night-only showing at the Alamo Drafthouse on May 15th, I believe.
Okay, so I will never be able to make that because I am not looking at.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think after it plays at the Alamo Drafthouse, it is going to go to like DVD and Blu-ray, and then eventually Full Moon's streaming platform.
Wait, Full Moon has their own streaming platform?
Yeah, they've had one for a couple years now. Well, they had one that was called Full Moon Streaming, but now it's just called Full Moon Features, and it's got almost every single Full Moon movie you can imagine. Plus, they also have licenses from other companies to release like all kinds of weird exploitation films. But yeah, they've got a plethora of Full Moon movies from Full Moon's catalog, and they're always coming out with new stuff like almost every other day.
Yeah, I mean, how much does it run a month? Do you know?
I'd have to look it up, but I think it's only like $6 a month or something like that. I'd have to. But I know they have like deals where like if you sign up for a yearly plan, you can get like a free like Puppet Master box set or like some other kind of free. They have like all kinds of offers for like yearly plans.
I'm gonna do that for my birthday, and I'm on my vacation. I'm gonna just watch like a movie a day if I can.
Yeah, actually, it's actually kind of thanks to Full Moon Streaming that I've been able to review some of these movies, because I do own a lot of them, but there are some like and we'll get into them a little bit later, like the Ginger Dead Man or Evil Bong or Killjoy, where I don't own them and I don't really feel like getting them, at least for now. So thank God I have Full Moon Streaming to watch them.
Yeah.
But yeah, go back to...
Here's the question: is like how much of the filmography are we gonna go over for the studio? Because we're like we went over like maybe a 10th of it just now.
Yeah, there's only gonna be a few more titles that I have lined up, so I'm gonna try to not make this like, I know we've been going for like an hour and a half, but I'm gonna try to make it so that we don't go no more than like maybe 2 hours. Like, ideally, I want to get this down to maybe like an hour 45, but I'll try to. We can like try to power through some of these other movies.
No, I got you. Let's hammer them out.
Okay, so after Subspecies, we'll just briefly talk about Doll Man, which is another one of my favorites from Full Moon, with Tim Thomerson again. Basically, he's like a cop from another world, where on his home planet he's normal size, but on Earth he's like 13 inches tall, hence the name Doll Man. And it's also noteworthy for featuring a then relatively unknown Jackie Earle Haley, like years before he became Rorschach. This is a really fun movie. Some of the compositing work to make Tim Thomerson look small is kind of dated, but it's a really fun, like, basically Alien Dirty Harry if he were like tiny.
It's Tim and Eric also a great job. Tiny Ted Danson, man.
Yeah. Plus, this movie also has an awesome tagline, which is 13 inches with an attitude.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so there's Doll Man, and then we got Demonic Toys, which the most noteworthy thing about Demonic Toys is it was written by David S. Goyer, who later went on to write the like Blade and the Dark Knight trilogy and Man of Steel.
Ooh. Now I haven't man, I remember watching Demonic Toys. I had a hard time getting into it. I got lost really easily. I think the most like entertaining interaction I had, like watching anything related to them, was when they fought the puppets.
Yeah. Well, there was also another crossover they did, Doll Man vs. Demonic Toys, which, I'll be honest, it's not that great. It's largely stock footage from Doll Man and Demonic Toys, with maybe like 5 minutes of original footage shot for the movie. But Full Moon actually has resurrected Demonic Toys a couple times. They did a Demonic Toys 2 back in like the early 2010s, and just recently they did a spin-off series centering around Baby Oopsie Daisy, except they just call it Baby Oopsie.
Ugh.
Yeah, I don't know why they dropped the Daisy, but, you know, whatever. So yeah, after that, Full Moon was cranking out some more movies, some good, some bad, but then they kind of hit hard times in the 2000s, and they did kind of have a mini revival in the mid-2000s with some of their new franchises, one of which was The Ginger Dead Man, which basically is about a serial... It's basically Child's Play, only instead of a doll, it's a gingerbread cookie.
Didn't they also make Santa's Sleigh?
No, Full Moon didn't do Santa's Sleigh. That was I think that was Bryan Singer who produced that movie. You know, the guy who made Superman Returns and some of the X-Men movies. Or no, wait, not Bryan Singer. Brett Ratner. That's it.
Damn.
Yeah. But, yeah, I've seen the first 2 Ginger Dead Man movies. The first one's probably most noteworthy for featuring Gary Busey as the voice of the cookie, and he's definitely the best part of it. And with 2, like, they obviously couldn't get Gary Busey back, but the guy they had voicing the cookie, like, he at least does a decent Gary Busey impression. And I am not looking forward to the third one, because I've seen clips of the third one, and it does not look good. Like, it looks bad.
How exactly? What were you exactly were expecting with, like, where we're going in this direction? We're talking about a sentient killer cookie. This is on the same level as, like, you know, the Jack Frost killer snowman level.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's true, but, like, I don't know, the third one, from the clips I've seen, like, even by, like, you know, the standards of Full Moon around this time, it looks bad. Like, let me just to give you an example, I'm going to show you what the puppet in the third Ginger Dead Man movie looks like. So, in the first 2, it looks pretty much like the image you see on the screen. But let me go to zoom, and you'll see my capture. And I've got the image pulled up, which should come up in a minute or two, because I know there's a bit of a delay. But actually, you know what? I can probably just share my screen with you. I don't know why I didn't think of that.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Let me go here. Just share my screen with you, just to kind of, because I'll pull it up for the audience too to show it. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Yeah, that's what the puppet looks like in Ginger Dead Man 3. Like, talk about a step down in quality. Yeah.
I don't know if it's a step down or a step up or.
Yeah, and not only that, but like in the first two, the puppet, like, it kind of talks a little bit like this. You know, like it has, you know, an appropriately sounding gravelly voice. But in the third one, it literally talks like this, and he goes around saying like, "You gotta be shitting me!" Like it's very much an overt comedy, but it's like, it's like beyond stupid. It's like, it's retarded from what I've seen. It's fucking retarded.
I think when they hit this part, when they were going this far, I think it was about like laundering money. I'm not entirely sure, but
yeah.
I could be wrong.
And believe it or not, it gets worse. Let me see if I can find it, because like they brought the Ginger Dead Man into the Evil Bong franchise, and I think with those movies they got even lazier with the puppet. If I could find a picture of it really quick. I'm not seeing anything. Oh wait, I found it. Right here. Okay, you can't really see it in the image, but basically what they did with, like, when they brought Ginger Dead Man into the Evil Bong movies was that it is a puppet, but it's more like a doll, like it doesn't move, and like they superimpose a mouth onto its face, like, and it just looks weird.
He looks like a like blunt art, you know, like you see them like the freaking short videos where somebody's like, "Where you gonna be after you get finished smoking this?" And it's like Omega Shinron, but in like wrapped up, like freaking just wraps.
Yeah, but I was thinking it's more kind of like Clutch Cargo, where they have like the still images, but then they like superimpose a person's mouth onto the image to make it look like they're talking.
Now, this could just be me being crazy. I think if that's how they did it originally, like if they did that from the beginning, I think it would have worked.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think the original Ginger Dead Man was going to look a lot different than what we got in the first movie. Let me see, because I know that there was like images of like concept art of what it was going to look like before the first movie came out.
It's like a sinister, annoying orange.
Yeah, hang on, let me see. Okay, I can't seem to find it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is what the Ginger Dead Man was originally supposed to look like. Basically, kind of like an evil version of the Pillsbury Doughboy.
Now, that would probably have worked a little better.
Yeah, except I think it was going to be all CGI rather than a puppet. That's the only thing. But yeah, so like I said, I'm not looking forward to Ginger Dead Man 3. But speaking of Full Moon franchises that, you know, people are probably surprised became a franchise, then there's Evil Bong, which as of currently there's like 8 Evil Bong movies, 9 if you count Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong. And I've only seen the first 3 Evil Bong movies, and they're pretty much what you expect. They're stoner comedies, only a lot dumber and with like weird aliens or some shit.
Yeah, I was I'm not into that sect of culture, so I kind of ignored
these.
Yeah.
Which it's weird because I watch Killjoy.
Yeah, which we'll get into that in a little bit. The only noteworthy thing I can say is that the first movie featured Tommy Chong, because of course it did.
Of course, how else? How else do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The first one I thought was okay, but yeah, I mean, there's really not much I can say about this series. I mean, it's right there in the title. It's exactly what you get. It's an evil bong. It's, you know, they're not exactly meant to be high art.
No, it's especially if we're looking at like the filmography at this point. It's like, are you surprised?
Yeah, exactly. But then we'll just move on from there to the last movie I wanted to talk about, which would be Killjoy. Now, Killjoy is kind of interesting because the first movie came out in 2000 as part of Full Moon's like Alchemy Entertainment label, which was like centered around urban themed movies, basically movies for a black audience. And they had one actor playing Killjoy, Angel Vargas, I think is his name. But then in the second film, they replaced him with Trent Haga, who Trauma fans might remember from Terror Firmer and Citizen Toxie, The Toxic Avenger Part 4. And he basically became the new Killjoy. Like, he was Killjoy in the second film, and then he came back for the third, and then he was in the later Killjoy movies, which there's like 5 of them.
I've only seen the one of them, despite the fact I have up till 3 sitting in front of me.
Yeah. I will say, like, the first one I thought was, like, okay. Second one wasn't a big fan of, but apparently not even Trent Haga wasn't a fan of it. Once you get to 3, that's when they start to get a little bit more fun, because they kind of lean more into, like, the whole demonic clown thing. Like, he's got his own posse of, like similar demon clowns. Like, he's got Betty Boop, that's like his girlfriend, kind of. There's like a mime called Freak Show where he's got like a conjoined twin attached to his side. Then you've got like a sad clown named Punchy, who's got like big boxing gloves that he uses to punch people. But like, yeah, once you get to the third one, that's when they start to get fun. And then they just go off the rails with like Killjoy Goes to Hell, and then Killjoy Psycho Circus. Like, I don't know, they're kind of fun. I mean, I'd say of Full Moon's like more recent franchises, the Killjoy movies are definitely the most entertaining of them.
You know, when you said Psycho Circus, when we started talking about this, I'm like, okay, Spaz, don't make ICP references. Don't make ICP references. And you said Psycho Circus, I'm like, okay, that's literally a Lyrica song.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Kiss, because I think they had a comic book series called like Kiss's Psycho Circus or something.
Yeah, that was part of the lyric. The lyric is fuck Gene Simmons, you make me sick. Psycho Circus, you stole my shit. Spit your blood out and do your dance, but I want to beat that ass.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of juggalos out there who get their rocks off to like Batty Boop from the Killjoy movies or something.
Nicholas, you got me acting strange.
Yeah. There's a joke I can make, but I really don't want to. I'm sure, you know what, we don't have to get into that now. But
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much a very basic rundown of the history of Full Moon and some of their most noteworthy titles. You know, I'm a fan of them. I mean, why else would I be doing Full Moon Fridays for all these years? Hang on, I want to double check because I think, okay, yeah, I'm still sharing my screen with you. I mean, sure, the movies have fluctuated in quality, but I don't know, I'm still a fan of them, and I'll probably keep being a fan of them. Spaz, what are your overall thoughts on Full Moon and the works of Mr. Charles Band?
Well, I would say there's definitely you know, when you throw all this shit at the wall, not everything is gonna stick. But the things that have like stuck in the back of our minds is things we'll remember. Like they say, you know, there's no such thing as bad publicity when it comes to like these here, and definitely with these movies,
they definitely have left their mark. Like if I remember walking by them every single time I went to movies for my father. If I remember that every time that I went in there and I see something different, like every so often, they got me curious when I was a kid. Now, whether I should be watching these movies when I was a kid or not, but now that I can, fully do that, I can go back, I can look at all the filmography, and I can, analyze and understand it a little better.
Yeah.
I think that some of their other concepts, especially how things work nowadays with how you can get greenlit for almost anything, I don't think it would be too much of a stretch for them to revive some of their older stuff for a new generation, because these concepts they have are a bit more than what people have nowadays coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it all comes down to writing and lighting, and you have more tools now than you've ever had for doing anything.
Yeah, I can see that. I guess my overall thoughts on Full Moon and Charles Band are that, I think they're not necessarily the gold standard for B movies. Like, there's certainly better ones out there, especially when you get into more recent Full Moon stuff. But a lot of their stuff from the early to mid 90s, they're still, like, I'd say definitely above like your average like low budget B movie from the 90s. Like, like Full Moon walked so that Asylum could stumble.
Yeah, that's, you always have to have an understudy, and there's always room for improvement. Like I said earlier, like we got movies like Birdemic, we got movies like The Room, we got movies that are like or like, do they set out to make a bad movie? Is there art making a bad movie? Yeah, and it's like, but there's a lot to learn from failure, and who knows? It's like you're inspired here making this. You're inspired to do these reviews each time the big glowing rock in the sky. We can see all of like one face of it. You get inspired to go ahead with that situation. Who's to say that someone else won't get inspired from this and say, you know what, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do my best.
Sure. And if nothing else, Charles Band, in a way, was a trailblazer. And he's also one of those guys who, even when the odds were stacked against him, he just kept on going. Like, even after he lost everything with Empire, he was just like, you know what? I'm just going to keep making movies, so I'll just start a new company. And sure, the company had its downtimes, but I mean, Full Moon is still going strong. I mean, I think the only other, like, independent studio that's still operating other than Full Moon would be like Troma, and they've been around for like 50 years at this point, like close to that. But yeah, we've been going on for a little while. I guess I can just go ahead and start wrapping things up. I'm gonna pull up the usual stuff to plug. Spaz, is there anything you would like to promote while you're here?
Well, we don't have the joint channel anymore, but I have started a new channel called Spaz Media. Yeah, like, you just look it up. I got mostly archive stuff, but I'm probably gonna be doing a little bit of something actually you might be interested in. I'm gonna be doing maybe an analyzation of a handful of books, starting with Cormac McCarthy stuff.
Okay, that sounds interesting. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Of course, I've got the website film-nerd.com coming up on my 5th year anniversary, which is insane to me to think I've been doing this for that long. And speaking of Full Moon Fridays, the most recent review I've got is for Full Moon Fridays. It's a movie called Assault of the Killer Bimbos, which was made pre-Full Moon, like during the Empire era. And it's basically Thumb on Louise if it were more of like a comedy. But it's, I mean, it's dumb, but it's like fun dumb, I guess is the best way to put it. And then I've got my latest Trauma Tuesdays review on a little movie called Rose and Victor, No Mercy, which is a pretty crazy movie. I'm honestly not sure what I could say about it, because like it would just be me like talking about all the crazy shit that goes on in it. But it's pretty out there is all I'll say. And then the last Full Moon Fridays I did was actually the most recent Killjoy movie, Killjoy Psycho Circus, which is probably one of the most insane, like, modern full moon movies I've seen. And then prior to that, I've got my latest Godzilla review, which is on Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. I'd say probably the best Godzilla movie of, like, the later Showa era, because, you know, this is around the period when you got, like, the really bad Godzilla movies, like Godzilla's Revenge and, like, Godzilla vs. Megalon and Godzilla vs. Gigan. But then Mechagodzilla, like, is actually really good. And I believe there's only one Showa era film left, and I'll be getting to that soon. And then prior to that, we've got the last Trauma Tuesdays review I did, which is another clown theme movie called Clown Camp Massacre.
Excuse me, what?
Yeah, it's clown. It's basically Friday the 13th, only if it were a summer camp for clowns. I'm not kidding.
That sounds oddly entertaining, but in like a sad way.
Yeah, I can see that. And then after that, we've got my most recent new release review, which is for Evil Dead Rise, which we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. I don't want to say too much, but honestly, this might end up being on my best stuff list towards the end of the year. I mean, it's still a little too early to say, but expect it to end up on that list. And then, of course, I've got the Patreon that you can donate to if you're so inclined. Obviously, you don't have to, but it's greatly appreciated. I do have a merch store that I don't plug very often. It should be in the video description if you want to check that out. I've got a Discord server you can join if you want to. Stay up to date. I've got all my social medias, and I think I forgot to put the Instagram thing in there, but who cares? But yeah, so Spaz, I just want to say thank you again for coming on such short notice. It was great having you on to shoot the shit about Full Moon.
I mean, it's always good to be wanted, you know. Or
yeah.
You know, to find time to get to do like anything remotely entertaining. And like I said, my biggest takeaway from these is the Hope Master movies. So
yeah, of course.
When I saw it on Twitter, I was like, hey, I know these.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I guess I'll get the last the ending song queued up real quick. But yeah, for those of you who are still watching, thank you very much for tuning in. It's always greatly appreciated. Let's see. Okay, I remember now. Sorry, I sometimes forget what the song is that I play at the end of these streams. But yeah, so I guess that's going to be it for this stream. Thank you for everybody who watched. Look forward to more reviews and more videos coming out soon. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.
Stay safe out there.